Those of you who don't know me, I'm Stephanie Gellman, Product Manager Online Leads with Royal LePage Canada. And what I do is I manage our online leads program, which is called Smart Leads. And what Smart Leads contains is leads from our national website, royallepage.ca. And there's two kinds of leads in Smart Leads. There are designated leads and there are distributed ones. And the designated ones come from your own listings and your agent page. And, everyone has an opportunity to receive those. Distributed ones will come from competitor listings on our site. And, the availability to have some of those is going to vary vastly across the country. So, if you're interested in those, reach out to your manager and talk about if that's a possibility in your neck of the woods. And what I love about the distributed leads is they're a really good way to get started in business when you don't have any listings yet. And so I have today a special guest, Ryan Malcolm from Royal LePage Heartland Realty in Goderich, Ontario. And also joining us is Rick Lobb. I always want to say Loeb for some reason, but it's Lobb, the owner of Royal LePage Heartland. And they're here to talk about how Ryan built his award-winning real estate business by starting out with online leads. Okay. And, a little bit of background to Ryan before I bring him in. And, I want to let you know a bit about who he was. Well, he was a Canadian Idol winner, I believe the first Canadian Idol winner ever, and a platinum selling recording artist. He toured the world with people like Elton John, Bon Jovi, and Annie Lennox. His love of travel and adventure brought Ryan and his wife to the jungles of Costa Rica, where they lived for 3 years, running a top-rated restaurant. And then while in Costa Rica, Ryan studied real estate online and then joined his brokerage after returning to Canada in 2016. And as I mentioned, to build his database, he signed up for his brokerage's online lead program. And after just a couple years, he began to win awards, starting with Sales Achievement in 2018, then President's Gold in 2019, Director's Platinum 2018, and he is now on track to surpass the Diamond Award in 2021. Wow. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ryan and Rick.
My pleasure. How are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm pumped. I'm excited. This is going to be great. So,
well, let me sort of explain how things got started in 2016. So, when we were at the Vegas conference in 2016, I got an email from this guy whose at the time name I did not recognize, saying that he was going to be living in the town of Bayfield, and that he was new to real estate, and his wife had a job in the area. So I met him the week after the Vegas conference, and I had known the person his wife's employer, who I knew socially, told me that this guy used to be in a band, so you probably want to hire him. And I was in a band and still am. So I was very interested in who this musician type is. So I met with Ryan in Bayfield, and sort of I wanted to gauge how cool he was, because of course I thought I was pretty cool.
Not cool at all.
I thought I was pretty cool because I was in a band. And so we sat down and didn't talk real estate at all. I first asked him, okay, so, have you ever toured? And then his answer was, yeah, in India and, Europe and North America. And I was like, oh, geez, that's kind of cool. And then I was like, have you ever made any records? And he was like, yeah, I recorded in New York. And then he said, actually, one of my records sold platinum in Canada. And at that point, I asked him, who are you? Because I could not believe
David Hasselhoff.
That I couldn't believe, like, why are you in Bayfield? Why do you have a real estate license if you have a platinum record? Like, I was not commuting for me. So anyways, then he at that time said, well, I won the first season of Canadian Idol. And so then we obviously he joined our brokerage, and Ryan did and this is from what we learned over the last few years, we learned that Ryan does two things. I'm going to talk about him like he's not here. Two things extremely well.
Oh boy.
The first thing, because Ryan was joining an area that is very exclusive. So the Bayfield market is a lot of cottage recreational market.
Yeah,
and
let's tell people, because we have people across Canada right now. They may not be familiar with Goderich, Bayfield area. So can you describe your, your geography, your market a little bit? Let people know the kind of challenge that he was putting himself up against.
We are a county of very small towns. Like the biggest town in Huron County is the town of Goderich with 7,800 people. Bayfield is a tiny little town on Lake Huron that the population explodes in the summer and dies away in the winter to probably 1,000 people or less. So there are 2 to 3 long-time, very well-known, deep-rooted realtors who are successful in that area. And when Ryan and I were talking about trying to break into that market, this guy is not from the area, which small town realtors will understand how much of an uphill battle that is, as well as, he's brand new to real estate. So he's got no real estate experience, and he literally, he's got very little to start with, except he does 2 things extremely well. His response time, I noticed very quickly, that if you text, email, or call Ryan, he'll pick up the phone or he'll get back to you right away, like within seconds. The second thing he does extremely well is building rapport with people. And so those 2 things were a basis upon which he very quickly established himself as a realtor, and then started to gain an incredible amount of business in a small town. Winning awards, in your second year is very difficult to do, especially when you don't know anybody. And now, like this year, Ryan's absolutely crushing it and is going to win a Diamond Award. And to do that in such a short amount of time is an impressive feat.
Extremely impressive. And I asked you before, Ryan, let's talk about why, even though you are absolutely crushing it, you're still working leads, because I know of some people who feel as though they don't need leads after a certain point in their career.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the leads have always been an important part of my business. Like Rick said, I didn't have any clients in the area. I didn't know anyone in the area. So I guess in a way that was a disadvantage, but in another way, it was sort of an advantage in sort of training me to really cultivate and nurture those leads. Whereas I think maybe if I had 5 or 6 leads right away, I might not have focused on the online leads as much. So it really did, give me a bit of an advantage. And, no matter how many leads, I think I've got probably hundreds of leads now, and a lot of them are cold, and, you still nurture them, throughout time, but, a new lead is still a new avenue for business. So I definitely treat every lead, whether they're looking for a trailer, whether they're looking to spend $2 million on a cottage, like it's basically what drives me, really.
Mm-hmm. And I know most real estate coaches and anyone who's been in the business for a while will tell you that there's always going to be market highs and lows.
Yeah.
Right now, things are really, really busy for a lot of the country. Really, it's kind of unprecedented how busy we are in a lot of places. And I've met some people who say, well, I don't need that now. Business is great, and they'll wait until business is slow to try to cultivate new things. But like you said, things can take time, and so when you have that steady flow in your database, you're not always relying on market fluctuations.
And I think another thing to keep in mind too is if you get 10 leads in the last 6 months, or that are online leads, the majority of them can't buy right now. So you're going to have to work with them, for at least the next year, or until the market slows down or calms down, if it will. I have no idea. It's a challenging market right now for buyers. So I'm just prepared to spend more time with these people, until the market allows them to purchase.
And just to put that into context, our market here, like up until 2017, was nothing like those urban markets in the rest of Ontario. Like, we had a balanced market that was a very calm environment to work in. And it was right around the time Ryan started where that market quickly changed into a seller's market. Yeah. And so working with buyers became a skill that not everybody had around here, because we used to have an abundance of listings and we were short on buyers.
Yeah.
Now you have the absolute opposite. And that brings me to, I want to jump ahead a little bit. We talked about leads for new builds, like properties that are not even built yet. And, I know agents love to have specific examples of, like, how do you work with that kind of lead where the house isn't even built yet? What do you do with those guys?
Well, I mean, we have actually just started through Rick's home field group, a new development in Goderich called Costa Rica. So we are getting a lot of leads for new builds that are 1 or 2 years away. And there are some growing pains with those types of leads for sure, mainly because it's never been done out in Goderich. This is the first subdivision of its kind, really, I think, Rick, is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, for example, I had a lead. We basically had an accepted conditional offer back in April, and it took up until yesterday to firm up. So, and they could have walked at any time because there's a lot of stress,
That's a long time.
And things change with the build and everything. So I will say, though, that a higher percentage of new build leads will probably not convert as opposed to someone who's reaching out with a specific property in mind. A lot of people that are looking for new builds are, just curious, which is fine, and even those ones I'll still cultivate. And sure, if they say, oh, you know what, we're 2 years out from buying, okay, no problem. I'll put a little mark in my calendar on my laptop for literally 6 months from the day, and just send them an email saying, hey, just wanted to check in to see if you were still thinking on purchasing, and more times than not, it actually works out.
That's great. I love that you you remind yourself to remember to reach out to them, because too many people will forget. And it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Right.
Another specific example, a challenging lead, we can call it, people who only want to talk to the listing agent, and then they get confused or upset when you're not the listing agent in the case of certain leads. How do you work with them, and what do you say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, that conversation, you have to be careful. Obviously, you can't tell someone, oh, you can't reach out to the listing agent. So what I try to do is explain to the buyer the advantages of, using their own agent, especially in the days of multiple bids and offer dates. Unless it's a specific property, like I've got a client looking in Muskoka. Okay, well then I'll work with that listing agent because I don't know the Muskoka area as well as they do. But in our area, absolutely, I get it a lot. We're like, oh, you're not the listing agent. Well, no, I'm not the listing agent, but, I know all about the property. I can tell you all about the issues with erosion and, conservation authority issues. So having a good all-around knowledge of your area will allow you to not have to worry about someone calling and saying, oh, I only want to speak to the listing agent. Some buyers will think they're going to save money if by using a listing agent, because some agents will give a lower commission if they're double ending, which is, I understand, that's totally a thing. But for me, I just try to demonstrate value for using myself in the transaction. And the majority of the time, they're fine with that. Again, if someone's like really pushing for it, then I'll just call the listing agent and say, hey, 25%, and there's your referral.
And I think, just to interject there, that on the point of on Ryan demonstrating value, I mean, ultimately that's the key to getting somebody to use you as a buyer rep versus calling the listing rep. And it's a matter of just, I mean, demonstration of value. Value can mean many things, and Ryan does have this advantage of having this leftover notoriety that makes it, when people find out that they're dealing with a guy who won Canadian Idol, it makes it an interesting experience, and it kind of enhances the whole transaction because it gives the client an interesting story. For some people, who weren't familiar with Canadian Idol at the time, maybe that doesn't mean anything, but there's a lot of people who did know who Ryan is and was, and so part of that demonstration of value is that enhanced real estate experience because our realtor was the guy who was the first Canadian Idol.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a hat. I've had people call me like, "Oh, we saw your hat in the newspaper. We thought we'd call you." I'm like, "Well, okay, that's cool." Anything you can do to sort of set yourself apart. Not that it's not a gimmick, but it definitely helps. Obviously, like Rick said, it definitely helps having that little thing in my pocket, and someone says, "Oh, I like this song," then I'll be like, "Oh, so did you know that I was the Canadian Idol winner?" No, I don't do that, but it has come up a lot, and I'm not walking around with my plaques, but it certainly does help. It breaks the ice. It's just
absolutely
like they don't want a salesperson. I've had so many clients say, we want to list with you because you didn't pressure us. A lot of agents won't even take listing presentations without having it signed first. And I get it. Some agents are busy enough they can do that, and that works for them. It doesn't work out here like that. So at least for this area, you got to just, treat people like they want to be treated, not like like you're trying to do a transaction all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and no, it's so true. People don't want to be sold to, and this is the biggest, most intense, most terrifying purchase for most people in their lives. So they really need to feel comfortable with you and trust you.
Yeah.
And I like that you mentioned in that a bit about, not wanting to waste time. Let's talk about showing requests because people can, I've seen leads where people say, well, hey, I want to see the house today. I'll be there at 5 with the wife and kids. Well, what do you say to that?
We love hearing that you're bringing the kids. No. If someone calls for a showing request and it's within the next 6 hours, I always try and make sure they're pre-qualified because a lot of times, especially in tourist cottage country, people will be, "Oh, we saw your listing. We'd love to see it." We're not really looking to buy, but we and that's fine. Like understand people want to look at houses, but in this market, you really have to make sure these are actual buyers as much as you can, especially during COVID. I didn't want to have unnecessary people through my clients' housing. So you really want to make sure that they're pre-qualified because a lot of times buyers will say, and I hate telling buyers this because they're like, "Hey, we'd like to go in at full ask, but we need, this condition, this condition, this condition, this condition." I'm like, "Look, that's a great offer. I'll certainly write that offer up and, fingers crossed it works out, but you have to prepare them for the chance that this will go for cash and try to somehow, because a lot of buyers are getting frustrated as well, right? So we're even seeing people that don't want to do showings now. They're fed up. So it's kind of a fluid market right now. And the big thing is you don't want to waste time. You don't want to waste anyone's time, theirs or yours. So just make sure they're pre-qualified.
Yeah, no, and I think it's well, and and you have to ask the awkward question of, are you serious in because as we know, I've chatted with a lot of agents about lead statistics and what people can expect, what percent of leads they can expect to close, and we know that agents who do well, they'll close like 4 to 6%. And that's really awesome. And you make good money out of that. But that still means that 95 out of 100 didn't close.
Right.
And a lot of people forget that number. And so a lot of them are not going to happen for whatever reason, especially in hot markets where, 10 people all want to buy the same house. There's still only one house.
For sure.
Yeah. The reality is, I think that, and I mean, this is a question for Ryan more than anything, but I think there's, you probably will, am I right, Ryan? You learn a little bit of a language of how to approach these online leads, sort of as you get experienced in the successes and then the majority of them being dead ends. You learn a little bit of an approach that sort of filters out the wheat from the chaff fairly quickly.
Yeah, and the thing is too, especially in this market, it moves so quick. You're always better off if you can speak to them on the phone. A lot of times they'll say email only, and that's fine. I'll reach out right away. I always would rather pick up the phone and have the, hey, have you been to the bank yet? You know, how long have you been looking? Because putting that in an email, and I actually got burned a couple of times during COVID. I asked this gentleman, I said, you know, we're expecting 60 showings in a week. I just wanted to see, have you been to the bank yet? And he got all offended. I'm like, you know what? That's cool. Like, I'm not going to drive an hour out of my way on a whim. You know, I can't afford to do that. And, you know, he got a little offended. I guess I don't know, whatever. That's on him. I asked a perfectly reasonable question, because at that time we were asking only pre-qualified buyers go through the house, because COVID, I think, had just hit. So it was like, you know, we really are trying to limit the amount of people, and he got all offended, and that's fine. So I kind of learned from that mistake to only have that conversation on the phone, because things coming through text and email can certainly have a different vibe.
And the tone, right? People don't know but when you're speaking, they can hear the warmth in your voice. Right. Whereas, who know, you know, just absolutely. Right. Let's talk about your daily routine, because you shared with me that you have a daily routine with a whiteboard, and I love that because it's so old school.
Yeah. It's I actually got the whiteboard idea from Kathy Dawson in this office. She's got one upstairs, and my first year, I just started writing out all the names, and I'd use different colored markers for, you know, a new lead, a hot lead, a cold lead, long shot. And I'd try and dedicate at least 30 minutes every morning to reaching out to leads on a rotating basis. And part of them will be on the whiteboard. Some will be, the majority will be in my emails. So I'll just search, you know, lead in my previous emails, and I'll look. And make sure that I've actually reached out. And you know, at a certain point, some will get missed. And I remember the first client I had who would email me saying, "Oh, we actually bought with someone else." And Rick, I think I called you. I was like, "Oh man, this is brutal." And Rick's like, the busier you are, the more that often that's going to happen, just through math. You have more buyers, more of them are going to go somewhere else to buy. Like, it's just a matter of mathematics. But you kind of have to get used to that. And I kind of took that as a teachable moment, as, okay, I really got to be on top of that, because there's nothing worse than, and you know, you want the person to get the right house, and I'm always happy for the clients. But if there's something that I could have done that I didn't do, and that resulted in someone buying with another agent, especially in my backyard, yeah, it stings a little. So it definitely motivates me to really just stay on top of those leads, stay in their minds.
I love it. I'm gonna put the call out to our audience that, you know, they can put questions, any questions that they have for you, in the chat while we continue talking. But I just want to let them know that that is
Sure.
available, as we are nearing 2:30. Now, let's talk about. So we talked about the importance of speed to lead, and, you know, and I pulled a report because I have access to that kind of stuff. Right. And I saw that you accept leads in 21 seconds on average, which is just mind blowing. And pretty much almost every lead that you've been sent, you've said yes to.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Are you a Superman?
No, it's much to the chagrin of my wife, because a lot of times, especially when we were doing the coast leads, we would get these leads at like sometimes 3 a.m, and it drives my wife nuts. And I apologize every time, because I have the worst ringtone when it goes off, because I need to wake up. I was missing a few, and it would drive me nuts, because I'm like, oh, you know, like, even if it's only 4 or 6%. I want that 4 to 6%, right? So I leave my phone on. I don't turn it on silent at night. And I know to a lot of people that sounds terrible, and it is terrible, but it has helped me. And I think part of the motivation to do that for me again was because I didn't have any people here. I didn't know anyone, to get these leads from other directions. So it was super crucial for me to always be on top of those leads. If I'm driving and I get a smart lead, I pull over to get it. That 5 minutes is like so stressful to me. I'm like, God, because sometimes I'll be in a place with no reception and I'm like, come on, damn it.
I love it.
It's probably not a good trait, but I definitely will say that I do get results. And a lot of times I'll call someone and they're like, "What? Who is this?" They're like, "We sent that email 30 seconds ago." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. What's up? What can I help you with?" And a lot of them are kind of taken by surprise. Some of them will say, "We've reached out to 4 agents and not one has called." And to me, I'm thinking, okay, well, that's great. That if my competition want to do their business like that, that's great. It's good for me. I won't do that. I'll always make time for a phone call, and it drives my wife nuts, but it definitely works for business.
But it's winning you awards, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that makes the wife happy as well,
Sure.
right? There's pros and cons to success. So okay, speed's only half of it. Let's talk about long-term nurturing. Our stats tell us that most leads, they're not going to buy right away, even though most agents want the leads that buy tomorrow. Most of them are going to take months, even longer. What's the longest one that you've had?
I've had a lead, I think I converted a buyer lead almost 2 years to the day.
Wow.
When I got the lead originally. Yeah. And I think part of it is you have to catch yourself, because we all get frustrated. We've all done the 20 showings and then they still don't, and it can be frustrating for sure. But you just have to remind yourself that that's all part of the job, and we make a very good living doing what we do. I remind myself that, yeah, maybe they want to see this cottage that's an hour and a half away and they're probably not going to go for it. But I'm going to take this opportunity to build and strengthen my relationship with them for when they are ready to buy. So, you go and hang out, you look at these beautiful houses. I mean, it's not a hard, we got a pretty great gig. So it's just taking those, even if it's a long shot, you always want to just try and build and strengthen the relationship when you're in person.
Awesome. I see a couple questions in the Q&A. Since we're talking about time, do you happen to know the average amount of time it takes for one of your online leads to close?
Rick probably has more of that. I will say that I think last year I had done like 5 or 6 smart leads, which were just like cold random leads, which was great for me, and in this market, it takes a lot less time, because if someone's ready to buy and they're putting in offer after offer after offer, they're upping their bid because they're tired of losing out, and they're going to buy something relatively quickly. We had a listing yesterday that I firmed up in Godrej, and the buyer had lost out on previous bids, but had only been looking for a month. So when people are kind of in that situation right now as buyers, where it's like, okay, we've sold our place, now we need to find a place to live. The market is insane, so we're going to have to go cash. We're going to have to go over ask. So I will say it's probably only 2 or 3 months now between first contact and firming up a deal.
Super.
Really.
Well, yeah. Okay, another question here. Are you using Sphere for your CRM, or are you just a paper guy?
I use both because what I miss, Sphere will catch. So I'll log in once or twice a day, refresh my my memory of the new leads, when they contacted, if I had already emailed them. For the most part, I'm not that tech savvy, so I do find Sphere helps a lot keep those things organized. Same thing with the automated email website that they have in the Sphere. It certainly takes a lot of that pressure off, where I can just fire off an email. I don't use the auto email.
Mm-hmm.
I just you want to put a personal touch on it. Like that's my biggest thing is always putting a personal touch some way. If you can find something in common or something to talk about in the email, it's definitely better to do that than just like a, hey, how are you today? I see it's been 6 weeks since we last spoke. You know, on top of that, I also have all of my leads on automated searches. That's like the number one thing I'll do. Even if they're looking at a specific property, before we do the showing, I'll say, look, just in case that property is not for you, let me get you set up on this custom search. That way I'm in their email once a day. And it can get annoying for some people, but for buyers that are serious, they want that. So they can see what the value's doing, what the market's doing, and so that they won't lose out on that listing.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. Just keeping yourself top of mind. So yeah, and so do you have any tips on organizing them? You were saying before about color coding. Is that?
Yeah, so on the whiteboard, and I'm not at my house right now, but yeah, I've got, and it's a mess. Like I'm not the most organized person, but it's my system and it works.
What's important.
Yeah, so, you know, definitely, like for example, I've got a spreadsheet of all my ends this year, all ACO, so, you know, conditional, firm, closed, all that. That really helps too, because if you've got 5 deals that are not firm, that's just, to me, it stresses me out because I'm like, okay, I got a financing is due when on this one. And so you really want to try and organize all of those, you know, ends as best you can so that you can focus more of your time on, okay, these guys haven't put an offer in, let's get them to that point. So yeah, it's a everyday thing. I've got my list and I update it daily.
Perfect. I love it. Okay. You know, so I mean, what I really love about your success story, you know, quite honestly, is it's one of hard work. It wasn't just given to you. And, you know, even speaking with Rick, when he talked not only about your speed with your reply to your leads, but your willingness to be there for your colleagues as well. So, you know, he said, like, not only is Ryan fast in replying to people's strangers online inquiries, when his colleagues reach out for help with a showing or help with some other, like, you are there, you are on top of this. This has not only garnered you some friends, but also lots of business too.
Yeah.
So these are other things that people who are new can look to do. You know, be responsive, be willing, be able to be helpful.
Yeah, that's huge. And it did get me quite a bit of business because who are we going to call? Well, we're going to call Ryan because we know Ryan's going to be there in 5 minutes and take care of it. Or he'll reach out to this client and make sure that he nurtures them and we can close the referral. And I kind of think in those terms as well. When I'm doing referrals, my wife and I we were quarantined last week. She got COVID somehow, so we had to be super careful. I tested negative both times, but I can't leave the house. So now I need a good agent that I can rely on. And luckily with Heartland, there are a lot of really great agents. Cam Dykstra is one that I use quite often. He's new and he's hungry and he's really good. So, you know, I know if I need a showing done or if I've got a buyer lead that I can't convert because I'm quarantined, I'll call Cam and he's right on it. And he's similar work ethic to what I do as well. Same with James Buchanan. We just did a deal together this week because I was in quarantine, and you really have to pick and choose who you want to work with. You don't have to be, you know, you can be friends with everybody, but as far as work, you want to pick the agents that are going to be the most on top of it. You know, you want people who can close deals essentially.
Yeah, if I can just interject there, that demonstration of value, it does sort of extend to not just clients, but to fellow realtors as well, because obviously when Ryan was starting out, we quickly realized that, you know, we can count on him when we need somebody. So yeah, the demonstration of value is important also to your fellow comrades.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. What else? Okay. So, you know, for people, for our audience here, so, you know, connecting well with your colleagues. A reminder of why it's important to reply to people, like the leads, quickly. If they don't get a quick reply, they're going to go to another website. Like Ryan said, people that he spoke with, they said, well, I filled out 2 or 3 other forms and I haven't heard back from anybody yet. And that is unfortunately all too common.
Yeah.
So, you get people before they have the desire to go elsewhere. And then once you start connecting with them, they're not going to need to fill out other forms. The way that you've been dedicated about staying in touch with people, even when they're not ready, even if they don't reply, which we didn't even really touch on, but, Ryan will continue his outreach, even if they don't reply. And that's something that I think a lot of agents have a hard time doing. They feel like they're being a pest or something.
Sure.
But if someone's not replying, it doesn't mean they dislike your messages. It just means they have nothing to say to you yet. But so just keep going.
And I've definitely closed leads that way, where it took like 5 emails, like, oh, thank you for, sending this. Find something to reach out, make an excuse. Happy Thanksgiving, happy Friday. Like, I know it sounds cheesy and kind of, whatever, but it works. At least in my instance, I find it works. And be genuine about it. Say, oh, I noticed you haven't replied back. Is it the fedora? What do you hate? You don't like bald people.
Do you hate my hat or my glasses?
So I always find an excuse to talk to people.
I love it. We have a question from the audience about lead volume, and what do you think is a good amount of leads to have without being like overwhelmed?
I mean, it because we get leads spread out, you can have a large volume as long as you organize them, by freshness or newness, and just if you're on top of it, you're rotating it every day. Like, I've got well over 100 automated searches, maybe 50 of them are actively searching, and just because I have them on that search and they get that email every day, I'll still reach out to them and say, hey, how's the search working? Even though they may not be looking to buy right now. If I see that they've looked at the search, that's perfect. That gives me an insight. Oh, I see you logged in, without sounding creepy, that they know you can watch them. But just as long as you rotate it, you can have as many as you want. Now, there will be a certain amount that you get and you're like, okay, I'm not giving good client service. I have too many leads. That hasn't happened to me yet. But again, I have missed a few. The few have slipped through the crack. And that will happen no matter what. But I think the big thing is just rotating the leads, and spending an hour, even an hour a day is a plenty of time to really organize, 25 to 50 leads at a time. It doesn't take that long.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Before we wrap up, any other tips for people who are new to real estate, or maybe new to working leads, or people who just need some tips?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just being quick and showing value. That's the big thing. And I know that some of the people watching are in much different markets where there's probably way more competition, a lot more agents. So I'm even more of a reason to really show your value. And, we have, I don't know how many agents are in our area, maybe 50, maybe more, but there's only a handful of them that actually do volume. Like, we're probably 15 agents locally. I don't know, Rick can probably correct me on that, but the big thing is just being one of those 15, and this is a full-time job for sure, but it's a great job. And you get to do your own hours, and the money's great, and you get to wear really cool hats. It's a good gig for sure.
I love it. Now I'm going to put up a few tips of my own on the screen for people to see, things that they can do for their own benefit. If you're interested in smart leads, if you're interested in these distributed leads that I mentioned at the start, the ones that are on the competitor listings, that are great when you don't have any listings yourself, talk to your manager, okay? Because the availability, it's going to be different across the whole country. I can't really say what could happen in your area, but you ask your manager if that is available for you. If that's not available, you can do stuff on your own. In Sphere, there's a whole ton of different tools that you can use to generate your own leads. Okay, so if you don't have them coming from somewhere else, don't despair. So as Ryan showed us, we want to be as fast as possible. We don't want to give people a reason to go somewhere else. And then once we get them and we're conversing, we demonstrate value, we build rapport, and be patient, because we know that some leads can take months or even years. Okay. But what's important for you is to just start taking steps and take those steps towards the future of your own business. And I'll put up Ryan's contact info up here. So if you want to reach out to him, if you want to ask him some one-on-one questions, or if you have a referral for Ryan, you just give him a call or email him. If you want to be my next guest speaker talking about online leads, if you have a cool story to share, you can reach out to me, because I am always looking for new speakers. And lastly, for training, get in touch with Learning Services, because they will share everything. They can teach you everything about Sphere, and customer care will help you with tech support. So I want to thank everyone so much for joining me today. I'll be sending you all a recording of this, and it will be up on my YouTube channel, hopefully by the end of today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, Ryan. It was so much fun, and all the best.
Appreciate it.
Bye.